All right. Good morning, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us all here today. Today's Shir should be Le'ilu Nishmas, our dear friend Menachem ben Yisrael Yaakov, as well as my dear aunt Rivka Bas Gabriel Tzvi, and for Zaidi, Reb Shmuel ben Yosef Dov HaKohen, B'schus L'Refu Shalema Bekarov Meshalem ben Sarachel, Miriam Basara, and Yair Yeshia ben Chaya Atara. Today, we are on page 233 in the Ora Vigdor, for those who are following along. And today, we are continuing this topic about the mistake that a person who is in authority. So we have this test of authority. So when you're a person in a position where you have authority of other people, there's this test that Chovos HaLevavos tells us. This individual might make one of three or all three mistakes. And the first one we spoke about yesterday is he thinks, this person in authority, say your boss, thinks that all the money that when he's making money, he feels like it's his right to have that money, and therefore sometimes, because he has a company and he has a bunch of employees and he's obligated to make payroll, or for another reason or another, he feels that because it's his right to get this money, he is allowed to go about in improper business practices in order to make this money, and rationalizing, saying, "Look, I need to make this for the payroll, right? I'm in that position." So that's the first mistake they might say. Today, the second mistake we're going to talk about, he says, "V'hasheni in kihu choishev shekol ma shegieh elav min hamamon hu teref mazaynai." The second mistake that this person might make is he thinks that all the money that he makes is for him and for himself only to spend. That's what he thinks. That's what this boss thinks. V'lo yovin, and he doesn't understand ki hataref mischalek l'shloisha chalakim, that when a person earns an income, every single individual, whether it's a boss, whether it's an employee, whatever it is, all your income is divided into three categories. These three categories are like this. Echad mehem teref mazaynai. One is the support for his food, what he needs in order to live. V'hu kalkala gufay bavad, and that is basic sustenance for his own body. What that means is basically Hashem says, I will keep you alive. I will give you sustenance. I'll make sure you have what to survive. And this is guaranteed by Hashem for every single living creature. I want to just elaborate this for a moment. When we are promised by Hashem, and here's where you see it over here, that Hashem is going to take care of us. And that has to do not with our luxuries, not with the extras in our life, but it has to do with our basic necessities. And you see over here, the first of the three categories that your income is divided into, and that first one is to provide you with sustenance on your everyday living to be able to survive. That's the first one. V'hasheni, teref mozon luzulasai. The second is to support the people who rely on you. Me'ishu avanim, such as your wife, your children, va'avadim, your servants, u'masharsim, and your employees, v'hadoimelem, and similar to those people who rely on you for their income to be able to support their family. Ve'inenu muftach min alakim l'chol habruim. It is not guaranteed by Hashem that you will always be there to supply them with that need. So understand, the first one is for your own sustenance. Every person on the face of the earth, every creature, every living organism is promised by Hashem for as long as they are decreed to live, that they will have food to survive. They'll have the basic necessities to survive. The second category is that you will be able to provide for someone else. So the second third of your income is to be able to provide for others. So if you're a boss, it means you're going to make enough money to make payroll. For yourself, as you're earning your own personal take-home pay, is to be able to support your household, your wife, your children, and others as well. It has nothing to do with people who rely on you in a certain sense. But in the second part that he's saying over here is, that's not guaranteed that you would always be in the position to be able to support others, including your wife and your children, because the guarantee that Hashem makes is for you and you alone. And everyone has their own calculation with God. So your wife and your children have their own thing with Hashem and how they're going to be supported. Hashem, through Derech HaTeva, for the most part, gets it through the breadwinners, or if there's dual income households, Hashem does it through that. But understand that at the end of the day, you being able to provide sustenance to your wife, your children, everyone else that relies on you, that's not guaranteed by Hashem that you're going to make enough money to support them. And that's the second one. And he brings over here an example from Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu, as long as he was in the midbar, there was man. So Moshe Rabbeinu was, in essence, supporting Klal Yisrael with food to be able to eat every single day. As soon as Moshe had passed away, what happened was there was no more man. So you see that sometimes you do have the ability to support your people, but then Hashem might take it away from you and show everyone that, look, this person was supporting you, but at the end of the day, the Yid and the Midbar didn't die of starvation. They got it some other way. So the point is that everyone gets their own basic calculation with Hashem for their basic sustenance, and then with your own personal income is in question over here. That second, third, that is to go to help your wife, your children, and the other people that rely on you. And that's the second of the three categories. The third category, he says, Vashlishi teref kinyan v'hu hamaman. The third kind of support is that for his property, v'hu hamaman asher ein boy to eles la'adam. This is money that will never benefit the person who owns it at this point. V'hu shomer alav v'noitzer oisai. He watches it and he guards it like a watchman or a treasurer ad asher yerishenu luzavasai, until people will come and they will yarshin it from them. His inheritors will get that money. And he says, or he might lose it some other way during his lifetime, not necessarily after his death, but during his lifetime he might lose that money. And the point over here he's making is that you see that there are people that have millions and millions of dollars, or it doesn't have to be millions of dollars, it should just be anything extra, and they have it in their savings account, and at some point, somewhere down the line, either they pass away and the inheritors get it, or they might get involved in something that they might lose it. Hashem could find many, many ways and get creative in how you might have to spend your money that you have in your retirement account, and Hashem, you might not have it anymore. So, again, we have these three categories. One is the three categories for your income. One of them is to support you and yourself only. The second one is your wife, your children, your household, the people who rely on you, including your employees and such, servants, and anything like that. And the third one is money that you will never ever come to appreciate at all, because it's just there for a short time and you're just holding on to it. It might be $1 million, maybe $100,000, whatever that number is. It's just sitting in your account right now. Yes, you look at your bank account and you see you have it, or you have assets on paper, but at the end of the day, you may never actually enjoy anything of it. Vasacha Yakshev, and the fool, he goes on to talk about it here for a minute. The fool thinks that that all the money that Hashem decreed to come under his jurisdiction, so we had these three categories. He's saying that the foolish person thinks that all the money that he makes, so if he makes $1 million a year, whatever it is, he thinks that all that money, that $1 million, is for him and him only. And by him giving someone else something, it's just because he's doing them a favor. But he thinks that it's for him and him only, and he doesn't realize that it's broken up into three separate categories, and happens to be you personally get the smallest, tiniest bit of that money that you make. As far as Hashem is concerned, Hashem promises your sustenance. Only one tiny, tiny portion. There's a bigger portion that's going to your wife and children, and there's another big portion that's going to everybody else. And vuhu mamaya elav, and that's why he's in a hurry to gain that money, u'mishtadei elav, and why he works hard to acquire it. He's saying over here, person works hard. He thinks that the money is his. This is the foolish person. He goes and gathers all this money. He has assets, he has everything, thinking that it's for him. And he doesn't realize that Hashem is making him only a treasurer to hold it for somebody else. In this third category, this third portion of the money that might be for somebody else, you're collecting all these assets, all this money, thinking that, wow, this is all for me. I'm going to be a millionaire, a billionaire, and I'm going to be able to enjoy all of it. And really what happens is, by the time you get to a point where you think you're satisfied, or you never really get there because you're still climbing that ladder constantly, and the person dies, or the person loses it in a big business deal, everything gets taken away from him. So you see that. One of the most famous stories that we see that is by Haman. In our story of Purim, what happens? Haman is so obsessed with wealth, kavod also, but he's so obsessed with physical assets that he amasses all this riches, and only to what happens in the end. We know the end of the story of Purim. Achashverosh goes and he says he gives everything over. Everything that belonged to Haman went to Mordechai. So you see that Haman was in such a rush and working so hard to gain all this wealth, but at the end of the day, he got zero out of it. Every single bit of it went to Mordechai. And so we see that there's a concept that while you are trying to do your part, your shtadlis, you have to keep in mind, understanding that only a little bit of it is for you. Another little bit is for your wife and your children. Another little bit is going to be for inheritors later on. And he talks about this, that that some of it will go to your enemies. Some of it might go to your wife's new husband. It can be going to your stepson, might be the person who inherits it. And so there's a different concepts over there, understanding that at the end of the day, this third portion of your money is money that you will never, ever benefit. And we see it every single day. We see people that die and they leave over huge fortunes. Clearly, the $100 million that they left over, they never got to enjoy it because they're gone now, and their inheritors are going to use it. Thank you, everyone, for joining us all here today, and I love you all.